greater could we be than if we were separated? So, what I really want to touch on in terms of my portion today is how the legislation here in the United States of America, not the legislation that we're taught in school and the things we purportedly learned in general public school education, but the information that was unlocked by the Dingle brothers, Grand Sheiks Timothy and Richardson Dingle, pertaining to the laws of freedom, the laws that freed our people from physical bondage. Because what's associated with the laws in terms of our freedom is associated what you would call birthright. So when we learn about nationality, the prophet spoke about nationality and birthright. So what does birthright mean? It simply means your rights at birth. Where are rights at birth derived? They're derived from the free national constitution of your free national government. So, as we all know, just give me 1 second, Mose. I want to make sure I have my time. I want to exercise a great sense of brevity, but I still want to, be thorough in terms of the information that we disseminate. And so that everything is kind of cohesive and kind of flows. See, that's something that naturally happens a lot of times in our meetings, is that a lot of times we don't even speak on what it is we're going to discuss, but because that energy of that seven permeates throughout us, throughout this movement, and it is channeled through the various different knowledgeable masters, we're able to stay on the same frequency, even though we're talking about different subject matter. So the first thing I want to touch on is the proclamations of Abraham Lincoln, because this is very important. This is basically the exceptions of birthrights for those classes, Negro, Black, and Color. All right, and the first of those series of proclamations was issued September 22nd, 1862. So I want to actually look at the text and kind of go through this one. So it says, I, Abraham Lincoln, President of the United States of America. So that's very important. You know, the prophet references the year 1865 several times. As a matter of fact, before we even get to that, there's something I actually wanted to touch first. Brother Muhammad, can we get the Moorish Quran, chapter 47, verse 17, I believe? Because again, I kind of want to connect the demonstration. So the Grand Sheik went into the historical connection of our people in the land of Canaan. And I kind of want to connect the historical people in the land of Canaan with us in modern day and what transpired. Islam.
Islam. That is why the nationality of the Moors was taken away from them in 1774, and the word Negro, Black, and Colored was given to the Asiatics of America who were of Moorish descent, because they honored not the principles of their mother and father, and strayed after the gods of Europe, of whom they knew nothing.
Islam. So, what he just read there, he talked about how the Asiatics of North America had their nationality taken away from them. When your nationality is taken away, so is your birthright, because you no longer possess the rights of a free national citizen, because your rights were snatched from you. Your birthrights are channeled through your nationality. So in the absence of nationality, you have no birthrights. Make sense?
Wow.
And he says, he gives a date. The prophet gives a late date. He says it's 1774. So we understand that during that particular period, colonization was taking place in the Americas, where colonies were established, and the indigenous Moors here in the America, some of them were, aligned with the European nations, and some of them were at war. Many tribes were at war with the European nations at this time. And the Moors that were fighting alongside the European, and the Europeans themselves, the United States of America, were able to defeat the Moors here in the West over a period of time. But the beginning of that fall is recorded in the year 1774. Y'all still following me so far, Moors?
Islam.
So it also states that the nationality was lost. It gives a reason And this ties into the Hebrew Mosaic Abrahamic connection. It says that they strayed after the gods of Europe of whom they knew nothing. Now, that's very important because in the book of Exodus, chapter 20, verse 12, it states, honor thy mother and thy father, that thy days may be long upon the earth, which the Lord thy God hath given thee. And the prophet in the 101s, as well as in the Moorish Quran, references this particular scripture. But it said, he states, honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the earthland, which the Lord thy God Allah hath given thee. So very little substance was changed in terms of this particular ancient law. But the prophet is confirming and reiterating that particular law to us. Why? Because this is something that plagued our ancestors throughout the scripture. You know, the Grand Sheikh had referenced how there were Israelites who did not follow the covenant, did not keep the covenant, and were worshiping idol gods and engaged in other practices that were forbidden, or what they will call haram in Arabic. So these forbidden practices, you know, led to the fall of the Israelites, and those same in the same practice of not following the laws, statutes, and commandments of the Most High is what led to our fall here in the West. So I just wanted to kind of put that for context. All right, so now fast forward, the Moors have been defeated. We've been branded Negro, black, and colored, and we're engaged in the era of slavery. 1861 comes. You know, it's precipitated by the Dred Scott decision. Slavery's been a huge, divisive factor in American history, and contentions have boiled over to the point of actual violence, where, you know, I believe it was in South Carolina, the first, in Fort Sumter, was where the first shots were fired. We're talking about citizens of the United States of America firing on a military installation of the United States of America. So this was an act of domestic violence that took place. And 4 years of war had ensued, of which our ancestors participated and fought and died so that we could be free. Without those events, us even congregating here, worshiping Allah, wearing fezzes, or worshiping Yah, saying, you know, speaking a tongue other than English, all of these things were forbidden up until the events of this war and the laws that were passed that gave us our rights and our freedom. But see, the problem is we don't know exactly what our rights entail because we're not familiar with the law. Make sense?
Islam.
So if I owe you something, or I'm supposed to treat you a certain kind of way, but you don't know it, and I'm abusing you, what recourse do you have? You don't have any, because you don't even know that there's such a thing as recourse that exists for you. So this is the importance and significance of learning the Constitution, learning the history of the United States of America, and our history, you know, during that contemporary period, or during this modern era, the era beyond the era of slavery, the era of slavery, and what, you know, the events precipitated beyond it. So I'm going to read kind of fast, but I'm going to stop on serious parts. I, Abraham Lincoln, President of the United States of America. Mind you, this is the first Emancipation Proclamation. There were several, but this is the first proclamation issued by President Abraham Lincoln in reference to slaves. I, Abraham Lincoln, President of the United States of America, and Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Navy thereof, do hereby proclaim and declare that hereafter, as heretofore, the war will be prosecuted for the object of practically restoring the constitutional relations between the United States and each of the states. So restoring the constitutional relations between the United States and each of the states. As we understand, the Southerners, or those that were in favor of slavery, many of them had seceded, unlawfully seceded. They decided that we're not going to be part of the United States of America no more because we don't like how things are being done. So we're going to form our own government called the Confederacy, and we're going to do our own thing. And if you want to fight about it, that's what we're going to do. So the president has a responsibility of maintaining order, of maintaining the union. And so this is Abraham Lincoln saying that he's trying to restore, you know, the union and make it intact again. And the people thereof, in which states that relations is or may be suspended or disturbed. That it is my purpose. So he's giving you his purpose, President. Upon the next meeting of Congress, to again recommend the adoption of a practical measure. Now pay attention. He says recommend, okay, I'm sorry, that's one purpose, upon the next meeting of Congress. What does Congress do? Come on, boys, y'all gotta wake up, man. What does Congress do? They pass laws, all right? So his purpose was to get Congress to pass a law pertaining to what?
Slavery.
To recommend the adoption of a practical measure. This is the first thing that he's saying in his purpose. Practical measure tendering pecuniary aid. What is pecuniary aid? It's money. That's the first thing in this law that's pertaining to our freedom is pecuniary aid. This is the first thing that the president is saying in terms of his purpose. Pecuniary aid to the free acceptance or rejection of all slave states. So again, he wanted to offer money to slaveholder states. Why? Because they have what was called property, albeit human property. But you have to understand that the institution of slavery was legal in the United States of America and legal internationally up until the 1800s. You know, Britain was one of the first nations to eliminate slavery globally, while many nations in Africa continue to practice it even up until the 1900s and unlawfully even up to present day. Okay? So, according to the Fifth Amendment, you cannot be denied your property without just compensation. So, the government can't take your cows, right? Unless they're going to compensate you justly. So-called Negroes were referred to as what? Chattel property. What does the word chattel mean? It comes from a French word meaning cattle. All right, so Negroes, blacks, our ancestors that were branded with these terms were considered nothing more than livestock. So this is the first time in human history where human beings that were enslaved were relegated to subhuman legal status. Y'all following me? This is our ancestors. This is our history, and this is the future of our progeny that we're talking about. Okay? So the slave masters could not be forced according to the Constitution to eliminate slavery. Slavery is a lawful institution. You can't just say you can't have slavery unless an act passed by Congress prohibits slavery. Make sense? But that means the states that hold slaves, in order for that amendment to be lawful, according to the Article 5 of the Constitution, they have to vote on it. You can't exclude the slave states in a vote and then try to say that this is law. So there are constitutional barriers. And when you listen to Lincoln, he has said that his goal is not to completely eliminate slavery. His goal is not to, or rather he said he's not there to free all the slaves, or to free some of the slaves, or to free any of the slaves. His job and objective is to protect and preserve the Union. That is his role as president. So he could accomplish his objective by freeing all of the slaves, then he would do it. If he could accomplish his objective by freeing none of the slaves, he would do it. If he could accomplish the objective by freeing some and leaving some enslaved, he would do it. We're not trying to turn this individual into a saint. You know, at the end of the day, he was a politician and he had a job. He took an oath to fulfill a certain role. And it was his belief that slavery was tearing the country apart. So in order to restore the Union, slavery had to be eliminated. And part of this process had to be done constitutionally. So he wanted to, and again, Congress, anybody who studies the Constitution, Congress is the one who has the keys to the money. You can't get nothing done financially without the legislative approval. They're the ones who do the budget, even for what the president wants to do. All right, so continuing on. So-called, and also, let me go back in a sense. It's my purpose upon the next meeting of Congress to recommend the adoption of a practical measure tendering pecuniary aid to the free acceptance or rejection of all slave states, so-called, the people whereof may not then be in rebellion against the United States. Because again, they was in rebellion because they were, you know the whole Civil War, what have you. In which states may then have voluntary adopted or thereafter may voluntarily adopt. So they could adopt it at that time, or they could adopt it at a later date and it will be still as valid. The immediate or gradual abolishment of slavery within their respective limits. So again, these states had the autonomy or limited sovereignty to decide whether or not they wanted to eliminate slavery. And that their effort, okay, now pay attention, Moors, and that the effort to colonize persons of African descent. What does that mean, to colonize? What is this aspect talking about? In the effort to colonize persons of African descent with their consent upon this continent or elsewhere with the previously obtained consent of the governments existing there will be continued. What he's saying is to colonize as in the United States of America will assist persons of African descent to colonize either here on this continent of North America or somewhere else. Now, where do we know that our people have colonized elsewhere outside the United States of America? We just had a brother come here and educate y'all on the same question. He mentioned what? They went where first? Lebanon. In the 1960s?
Lebanon.
The brothers under, not Lebanon, I heard Lebanon,
Liberia.
Liberia. All right? So the pioneers traveled first to Liberia. How did that happen? What was associated with that? Well, again, the two places that were propositioned in terms of so-called free blacks to be able to apply to colonizing for citizenship was Liberia and Haiti. And Haiti did not accept it. Liberia did. So it was this law that allowed for the brothers in the 60s to be able, the brothers and sisters in the 60s to be able to travel over there. And the government was supposed to assist them with that expense. So from my understanding, as the brother had greatly stated, they suffered. People died of starvation. It wasn't like, oh, welcome Americans here, we're going to feed you. Or, you can take your currency and come buy some food at the local supermarket. It was, it was as difficult as the original Exodus for them to sojourn from the land of Liberia into the land of Israel. But that compensation, that law for us to be able to colonize elsewhere was supposed, with this knowledge, those brothers could have had financial assistance, and maybe some of the brothers and sisters that passed away or the difficulties they had in that journey could have been avoided with the knowledge of this law and petitioning the government for that assistance. Also, colonizing in the land of Israel. The brothers and the sisters out there, they had to utilize their own efforts and resources and whatever they were able to galvanize in order to build. When the government already owed them this. The government already owed our people to be able to colonize here in America and abroad, and we are reading, this is just one reference of it. This reference is actually made again in terms of the law. So, this policy of freedom, whether you wear a fez or whether you're not, whether you worship Yah or whether you prefer the title or name of the Most High as Allah, is irrespective of this law. If you're a descendant of those that were enslaved here in America, this law pertains to you, and birthrights are associated with it. That's right. All right, I'm gonna go through this last paragraph and I'm gonna close out. I'm gonna ask the Sheikh Brother Muhammad at this time if he could go around and collect any dues or donations that brothers and sisters may have. As a matter of fact, let me get mine ready now. So, here we are, boys. We have a law, but we're not enforcing it. The European's not going to come to you and say, you got a check that is overdue by about several decades, over 100 years. They're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. But what would another group or nation of people do if they were owed something they didn't get it? What would they do? Just take a wild guess, man. If a nation of people was owed something and they didn't receive it, what would they do? They would sue. This ain't rocket science, and they would sue according to law. So the United States of America owe us certain things. We didn't get it. The first step or first action is to contact them and say, hey, you owe us this. This hasn't been done. What's up? Then the next step or course of action, if they try to give us the runaround or they don't, you know, they are outright denying us, is to sue. It's that simple, boys. It's that simple. So I'm going to read this next paragraph because there are more birthrights contained. So we only a paragraph in. And think about how much is owed to us in one paragraph. And this is one of several proclamations. And we didn't even get to the constitutional amendment yet. That on the first day of January in the year of our Lord 1863, all persons held as slaves within any state or designated part of a state, the people whereof shall then be in rebellion against the United States. So this is dealing with states that are in a state of rebellion. This proclamation, and the subsequent proclamations did not free all so-called blacks in all territories. A state that was loyal to the Union, but still permitted slavery, the slaves were not freed in this territory. It was the 13th Amendment with 20 sections that freed slaves throughout the United States. All right? Now, so where shall be in a state of rebellion against the United States, pay attention, shall be thenceforward and forever free. So this law right here says we can never be put back into slavery. I think that's something that's important. Y'all want that kind of security, don't you?
Yeah.
That we would never once again be put in chains and forced to perform labor at the behest of another. And the executive government. So we talking about the president, we talking about the Department of Defense, we talking about the Secretary of State, the U.S. Attorney General. We talking about all of those that fall under the entire president's cabinet, every department and agency within the executive branch. When we say executive government of the United States, including the military and naval authority. That means that the military and naval authority is subordinate to these birthrights, according to this law. So when they say Moors, where your military at? Y'all ain't got no, it's right here in the law. We are Moorish Americans, citizens of the u.s.a. And within that law it states that the executive government, the military, and naval authority thereof, what will they do? Will recognize, so first they have to recognize, so that means when you go on Social Security, they're supposed to recognize you. Because that's a federal agency under the executive government. When you go to, get your passport done, that's a agency under the executive government. So they have to recognize us and maintain the freedom. So now they have to maintain our freedom, meaning that they need to use their guns, their tanks, their planes, their bombs to ensure that we are free according to this law. How powerful is that? And so-called blacks is walking around here getting gunned down as if the state is superior to the executive government. It's not. It's inferior, according to the constitutional law. That means that the military is supposed to check the local state police when it comes to protecting us. It's already law. We don't got to get this passed. We just need to enforce the Constitution to save the nation. Islam?
Islam.
So they have to maintain the freedom of such persons. And check this. So you know how the government conspires? We had the COINTELPRO and all of that? This law prohibits that. We could sue based off the COINTELPRO activity, based off of this law. It says, and will do no act or acts to repress. What does repress mean? To try to keep us down. To repress such persons referring to us, those held as slaves, or any of them, meaning any single one of us. So that means the collective of us or an individual of us. In any efforts, anything that we try to do, they may make for their actual freedom. So if you say you an Israelite from the nation of the kingdom of Yah, the nation of Israel, they're supposed to recognize, based according to this law. and do no act or acts to repress you. It's supposed to assist you in being recognized by the international community of the world. Moors, unfortunately, we out of time. I could do this. I literally could be up here for days breaking this law down, Moors, but in the interest of time, I like to once again thank our wonderful esteemed guests, Brother Tyrone L. Brother, one more time. I'm horrible with names. I'm amazing with faces. Brother Magani L. Ak Magani L. And once again, Moors, the work don't stop, man. Y'all need to spread this information. The video will be up on our YouTube channel, Brooklyn Moors. Please share the video. Once again, we always meet every Sunday, 12 to 3 p.m. Thank y'all all for coming out. And we are going to close out our meeting as we opened it with our Moorish American prayer. If you're not comfortable participating in the